Hello, everyone. Welcome back. How are you all? Hello. Hi. Hello, Zubgaji. Walaikum assalam. I am good. How about you? What is your beautiful name? Thank you so much for joining. Hi, Swapnilji. How are you? Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining. Okay, Zubgaji. This is for you. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Good evening. Hi, BMW guy. How are you? Welcome. Here is yours. Hello. Welcome. It is a good name. Hi. Yes. Absolutely right. Uh, you okay? Good to hear. Hello, Mozin bhai. We are doing good. How about you? Oh, okay. Here is yours. After so many days, Mozin bhai, where were you? You are great. Good to hear. Comments your beautiful name. I am good too. Thank you so much for asking. Okay, okay. Smart boy. Okay. Uh-huh. Good to hear. Hello everyone. Comments a good name. I remember you. Hello, dear Umi. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Sana. How are you? Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Misha. Here is yours. Hi, dear Arusi. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Jay. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Hello, dear Radlin. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear City. Here is yours. Okay, dear Aisha. Here is yours. Hello, dear Labib. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Cameron. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Hello, dear Malak. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Ria. Here is yours. Hello, dear Arwa. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Cindy. Welcome back. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining again. Hello, dear Hannah. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Mughal. Here is yours. Hello, dear Shazel. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, hi, dear Elisa. Elisa or Elisa? Here is yours. Hi, dear Raika. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Ziva. Here is yours. Okay, dear Elisa. Here is yours. Hi, dear Umar. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Bilawal. Here is yours. Hi, dear Yusuf. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Furry. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Arif. Here is a beautiful name. Hello, dear Leo. Here is yours. Maya. Huh? What's your name? Hello, dear Beruni. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Shuvo. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Hello, dear Uni. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Manish. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Hello, dear Gosia. Here is your good name. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hello, dear Maria. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Ivy. Here is yours. Hi, dear Mariam. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Advika. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining, dear Advika. Hello, dear Yasmina. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Maria. ¿Cómo estás? Gracias. Here is yours. Hello, dear Nikhil. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hi, dear Neven. Here is yours. Hello, dear Ozil. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Purvi. Here is yours. Thank you so much. Lots of love, dear. Hello, dear Ellie. Ellie without E. No, without I. Here is yours. Hello, dear Ellie. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Ryan. Here is yours. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hi, dear Vanya. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Divano. Happy birthday to you. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Maria. It's a good name, dear. Thank you so much for joining. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Alia. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Luciana. Here is yours. Hi, dear Nihad. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Sophie. Yes, of course, I remember you, dear. It is a good name. Thank you so much for joining again, dear. Hi, dear Gazia. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Bastian or Bastian? Let me check the spelling. Just a second. Bastian. Hello, dear Bastian. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Aman. Here is yours. Hello, dear Hey Loisa. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Akbar. Here is yours. Hello, dear Shanna. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Kirtan. Kirtan or Kirtana? Here is a good name. You're most welcome, dear Sophie. Sophie or Sophie? Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Hi, dear Nafis. Here is yours. Hello, dear Anamta. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Amira. Here is yours. Hello, dear Luna. Here is your beautiful name. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. Hi, dear Theo. Here is yours. Hello, dear Sammy. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Dua. Here is yours. What a beautiful name you have. Hello, dear Lavin. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Yusra. Here is yours. Hello, dear Haram. Here is your beautiful name. Thank you so much for joining. Hi, dear Jolene. Here is yours. Hello, dear Hafiz. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Mira. Here is yours. Hello, dear Yuvranji. Yuvranji? What a unique name you have. Yuvranji. Here is yours. Hello, dear Shannon. Here is your beautiful name. Thank you so much for joining. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hello, dear Nancy. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Lisa. Lizzie. Lisa or Lizzie? Lizzie. Here is yours. Hello, dear Dean. It is a good name. Hi, dear Ilknur. Ilknur, what a unique name you have, dear. Here is yours. Hi, dear Ian. It is a good name. Hi, dear Karina. Here is yours. Hi, dear Maher. Here is yours. Hello, dear Alia. It is a beautiful name. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Maria, love. Hello, dear Maria. Here is yours. Hi, dear Tina. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Hemel. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Okay. Hi, dear Malak. Here is yours. Walaikum assalam, Riaz Bhai. I am good. How about you? It is a beautiful name. Thank you so much for joining again. Thank you for remembering me. Hello, dear Malad. Here is yours. Hi, dear Nanny. Here is yours. Hello, dear Vaxi. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Ayat. Here is yours. Hello, dear Faiz. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Tarannum. Tarannum. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Hello, dear Eliza. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Rumi. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Anna. Here is yours. Thank you so much for subscribing, everyone. Do you always used to do live at this time? Yes, dear Sophie. Hi, dear Sabina. Here is yours. Hello, dear Malika. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Rexona. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Hi, dear Rilo. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Sad. Here is yours. Hi, dear Matteo. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Ranem. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I am good. How about you? Thank you for asking. Hi, dear Tasso. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Eden. Here is yours, Katniar. Hi, dear Radhika. Here is your good name. Who said this? Hello, dear Pragya. Here is yours. Hi, dear Lara. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Zen. Here is yours. Hi, dear Anelia. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Yuvraj. Yuvraj. Here is yours. Hi, welcome, Deepti. Hello, dear Deepti. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Zimal. Here is yours. Hello, dear Ilara. Here is your good name. Okay, this is for you. Thank you so much for joining. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Hyun. Here is yours. Hi, dear Daria. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Abid. Here is yours. Bye. Take care. Thank you so much for joining. Oh, Hazik. Hello, dear Hazik. Bye. How are you? Hi, dear Neela. Here is yours. Hello, dear Jihan. Here is your good name. Good name. Hello, dear Zestman. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Let's see who is next. Sorry, I can't pronounce your name, dear. Mukhlisa? Or, sorry. Let me check the spelling. Let me check the spelling. Just a second. Mukhlisa? Yeah, I am on the right track. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Hi, dear Phoebe. Welcome back. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Lara. Here is yours. Hi, dear Savannah. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Idri. Here is yours. Hello, dear Saren. Here is yours. And let's see who is next. Rehona. Hi, dear Rehona. Here is a good name. Hi. Uh-huh. Dear Varsha, here is yours. Hello, dear Dia. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Munira. Here is yours. Hello, dear Jory. Here is your good name. Double tap on your screens. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Lela. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Amza. Here is yours. Okay. Hi, dear Javier. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Crystal. Crystal, let me read. Crystal, here is yours. Hello, dear Jasim. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Reed. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Yes. Hi, dear Han. Here is yours. Yes, 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 yes. Hi, dear Rafi. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Dila. Here is yours. Hi, dear. Here is yours. Hello, dear Alize. Here is your beautiful name. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Don't forget to double tap on your screens. My name is Holly. Hello, dear Holly. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Andy. Here is yours. Hi, dear Mahanur. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Ali. Here is yours. Hey, dear Chandler. Here is your good name. You're most welcome. Hello, dear Kevin. Here is yours. Hello, dear Halima. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Arva. Here is yours. Hello, dear. Let me hear the question. Just wait for a second. Your favorite vegetable? Let me add the question, guys. Just wait for a second. Yeah, it's done. Hello, dear Anna. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, that's me. Oh, hi, dear Olga from Germany. How are you? Here is yours. Hello, dear Rania. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Abuk. Here is yours. Gawa. Good to hear. Hello, dear Anila. Here is yours. Hi, dear Nasita. Here is your good name. Don't forget to double tap on your screen, guys. Come on. Okay, let's see who is next. Dear Theo. Hi, dear Theo. Here is yours. Hello, dear Tilka. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Sadia. Here is yours. Hyunlix. Hyunlix. Here is yours. Hello. Who is spamming with or ahan? Here is yours. Hi, dear Zaya. Here is a good name. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Nelly. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hi, dear Marcus. It is a good name. Hello, dear Amira. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Suraksha from Nepal. Hi. What a nice Gaji. Not at all. Hi, dear Suraksha. Here is your good name. Comments are moving so fast. Here is yours. Hello, dear Diabo. Here is your good name, Charlotte and Timmy. Charlotte, Charlotte and Tammy. Okay. Thank you so much for correcting me, dear. And thanks for your patience. Here is a beautiful name. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. Han. Okay. Here is yours. Oh, yeah. Hi, dear Maja. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining again. Olga is your mother's name. Okay. Now I'll remember. Hi, dear Sophia. Here is yours. Hello, dear Walid. It is a good name. Hi, dear Aisha. Here is yours. 6-7. Can we make it 7-7? Hi, dear Farah. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Alaska. It is a good name. Let's see who is next. Oh, hi, Luis. Welcome back. Here is yours. Hi, dear Milana. It is a good name. Okay, it's okay. Hi, dear Diabo. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Telha. It is yours. We are stuck on 6-7. Literally. Hi, dear Mia. Here is yours. Can we make it 7-7? Hi, dear Osme. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Iman. Here is yours. Hi, dear Deep. Here is yours. Okay, from yesterday. What's a good name? Let me check. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining again. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Chloe. Here is yours. Hello, dear Aisha. It is a good name. Hi, dear Jihan. Here is yours. Hello, dear Orvi. Here is yours. Hello, dear Myra. Here is your Sanju. Hello, dear Sanju. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Raima. Here is yours. Hi, dear Kenza. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Nia. Here is yours. Now we are stuck on 7-2. Can we make it 7-7 at least? Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Nancy. It is a good name. Hi, welcome. Hello, dear Abrish. Here is yours. Hi, dear Fasya. Here is a beautiful name. Hello, dear. Let's see who is next. It's okay. You are the cutest. Hi, dear Ria. Here is yours. Hello, dear Ishrak. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Tarun. Here is yours. Hello, dear Ravza. What a unique name you have, dear Ravza. Hello. Hi, Radheshamji. How are you? Welcome back. I am good. How about you? Hello, dear Adam. Here is yours. Thank you so much, Iggy. Here is yours, dear. Hello, dear Jordan. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Hamza. Here is yours. Let's see who is. Yes, you are the cutest. Zehin. Hello, dear Zehin. Here is yours. Hi, Isha. I am good too, dear Nitik. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Kaya. Here is your good name. Double tap on your screen, guys. Oh my god, where is my life? Hi, dear Mariam. Here is your beautiful name. Don't forget to press the subscribe button. Hello, dear Luna. Here is your good name. Thank you so much. Thank you. Lots of love. Hey, dear Max. Here is yours. What's your name? Yes, I just boiled the potatoes. Potatoes. Hi, dear Agatha. Here is yours. Hello, dear Fatima. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Kasabi. What a unique name you have, dear. It is a beautiful name. Hello, dear Zahara. Here is yours. Hi, dear Neelu. Here is yours. Hello, dear Austin. Kimi. And let's see who is next. Hi, dear Talia. Here is yours. Hello, dear Mahi. It is a good name. Hello, dear Humera. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Hello, dear Jazeb. Jazeb. It is a good name. Hi, dear Fasya. Here is yours. Hello, dear Meherin. Here is a good name. I am good, dear Izam. Here is yours. Thank you so much for asking. Let's see who is next. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hello, dear Devika. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Vega. Here is yours. We have to complete 100. Come on. Weberly. Hi, dear Weberly. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Shama. Here is yours. Hi, dear Akrisha. Arkisha. Arkisha. It is a good name. Hi, dear Dua. It is a beautiful name. Hello, dear Mail. Here is yours. Oh, you're most welcome, dear Radheshamji. Hello, dear Hamna. Here is yours. Hello, dear Ayat. It is a good name. Hi, dear Alice. Here is yours. Hello, dear Scarlett. Here is yours. Hi, dear Anand. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Desire. Here is yours. Hello, dear Kazumi. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Akisha. Here is yours. Hello, dear Tugba. Here is your good name. Double tap on your screens. Hi, dear Shahzeb. Here is yours. I am new. Welcome here. What's a good name? Hello, dear Gurveer. Here is yours. Thank you. Coughs. Hello, dear coughs. Here is yours. Hello, dear Gargi. Here is yours. Hi, dear Umar. It is a good name. Hello, dear Ananya. Here is yours. Hello, dear Lara. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Harsha. Here is yours. Hello, dear Cian. Here is yours. Hello, dear Heart. Here is a good name. Thank you so much for joining, dear Heart. Hi, dear Jonathan. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Angela. Here is yours. Hello, dear Brazil. Okay, here is yours. Hi, dear Yarek. Here is your good name. Double tap on your screens. Let's see who's gonna be the 100th liker. Hi, dear Sammy. Here is your good name. Okay, good day. Hi, dear Zaira. Here is yours. Hi, dear Markela. Here is your good name. Hello, Markela with double L. Markela. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Hi, dear Kavya. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Amal. Here is yours. Thank you so much. Hello, dear Ellie. Here is yours. Hello, dear Yasmin. Here is your beautiful name. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. You're the best. Oh, you were the best test. Thank you. Hi, dear Ria. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Sabruba. Here is yours. Hi, dear Arya. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Doruk. Here is yours. Hello, dear Chloe. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Lavinia. Here is yours. Hello, dear Natalia. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Astu. Here is yours. Hi, dear llama. Here is your beautiful name. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hi, dear. It's girl. What are you saying? Hello, dear Matthew. Here is yours. Hi, dear teacher. It is a good name. Hello, dear Rihanna. Here is yours. Hello, dear Sarah. Here is your good name. Hi, welcome back, dear Anaya. How are you doing today? Welcome. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Ben. Here is yours. Hi, dear Maram. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Mila. Here is yours. Nothing, nothing. Hello, dear Afros. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Ibrahim. Here is yours. My name, you don't know about my name. My name is Ishal. Hi, dear Kader. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Taha. Here is a good name. Hello, Zara is Dana. Hi, dear Akash. Here is yours. Hello, dear Daphne. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Llama. Here is yours. Hi, dear Asel. Here is your beautiful name. Thank you so much. Kobul. Hello, dear Kobul. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Hello, dear Emma. Here's a good name. Don't forget to like and subscribe and stay hydrated. Let me drink some water. E-signature. Yes, dear. Thank you so much for your patience. Hi, dear Kader. Here is yours. Hello, dear Eden. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Chewy. Here is yours. Hello, dear Stella. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear GAYNE. Here is yours. Hello, dear Dennis. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Jessie. Here is yours. Hi, dear Paul. It is a good name. Hi, dear Lujan. Here is your beautiful name. You're most welcome. Hi, dear Alice. Here is yours, sweetie. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Amy. Here is yours. Hello, dear Lion. Here is your beautiful name. Thank you so much for joining. And don't forget to press the subscribe button. Emil. Hi, dear Emil. Here is yours. Hello, dear Needy. It is a good name. Hello, dear Sheku. Sheku. Here is yours. Hi, dear Sinebe. It is a good name. Hi, dear Calvio. Here is yours. Hello, dear Sahara. Here is a beautiful name. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. Let's see who is next. Ah, okay. Hello, dear Arve. Here is yours. Hi, dear Akiro. Here is a beautiful name. Uh, okay, Louis, please don't spam, man. Here is yours. Hi, dear Vishal, welcome. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Noor, welcome. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Vishal. Here is yours. Hello, dear Maurice. It is a beautiful name. Hello, dear Malek. Here is yours. Hello, dear Harshada. Here is your beautiful name. Thank you so much for joining. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. Come on, double tap on your screens. Hi, Mohammed. Hello, dear Mohammed. Here is your beautiful name. Thank you so much for joining. Hello, dear Reshma. Here is yours. Hello, dear Irtaza. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Duana. Here is yours. Hello, dear Aya. Welcome, dear Aya. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Elif. Hi, dear Elif. Here is yours. Hi, dear Navira. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Ishan. Okay, don't spam, dear Olga. Please don't spam, dear Maja. Maja. Oh, you want me to write my name? Okay, this is for you. Hello, dear Bart. Here is yours. Hi, dear Shafi. Here is your beautiful name. Double tap on your screens. Asta. Hello, dear Asta. Let me change the brush. Hello, dear Akrin. Here is yours. Hello, dear Selma. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Jaira. Here is yours. Hello, dear Arya. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Vaishnavi. Vaishna Vaishnavi. Here is yours. Thank you. Hi, dear Nafis. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Abby. Here is yours. Guys, double tap on your screens. We are literally stuck on 118. Can we make it 127 at least? Hello, dear Mass. Here is yours. Hi, banana. Good to hear. Banana is a vegetable. Uh-huh. Hello, dear Isa. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Amina. Here is yours. Hello, dear Jana. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Cyan. Here is yours. It's my birthday. What's your name? Aliba or Adiba? Can you please confirm? Hi, dear Cyan. Here is yours. Why not, dear? Why not? IKYRIA. It is a beautiful name. Thank you so much for joining. Hello, Aliba. Hi, dear Aliba. Happy birthday. It is your good name. Thank you so much for joining. Okay, I am Yago from the last live from Brazil. Thank you so much, dear Iago. It is a good name. Thank you so much for joining again. Hi, dear Asia. Here is your good name. Bye, dear. Take care. Hello, dear. Nago or Nago? Oh God, why I am doing so much mistakes? Hi, dear. Nago or Nago? Can you please confirm? So sorry, guys. I am making so much mistakes today. Oh, thank you so much. Nago or literally, I forgot the spelling, man. Never. Okay, okay. After this, dear. Hi, dear Samira. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Nevo. Here is yours. Hi, dear Mina. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Yuonju. Here is yours. Hi, dear Zara. So good to have you here. Thank you so much for joining. Hello, dear Kenzie. Here is yours. Hi, dear Ashley. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Daphne. Here is yours. Hi, dear Charlie. Here is your good name. Thank you so much, dear. Lots of love. Hi, dear Hayat. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Baron. Here is yours. Hi, dear Agatha. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear sweetie. Here is yours. Hi, dear Annan. Here is your beautiful name. April. Good to hear. Hi, dear Vanessa. Welcome back. How are you doing today? Thank you so much for joining again. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Annan. It is yours. Let's see who is next. Hi, dear Franchi. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Nimra. Here is yours. Hi, dear Ari. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Anaya. Here is yours. Hello, dear Queen. Here is yours. Hi, dear Kipsha. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, hi, welcome back. Hello, dear. Here is yours. Hello, dear Khadija. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Aisha. Here is yours. Hello, dear Hayen. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Sarah. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. Oliver. Hi, dear Oliver. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Cheyenne. Here is yours. So good to have you here. Hi, dear Abaya. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Oral. Here is yours. Thanks for liking and subscribing. Hi, dear Shanita. It is a beautiful name. We have to complete 150, guys. Come on, double tap on your screens. Hi, dear Ellie. Here is yours. Happy birthday. What's a good name? Hi, dear Trisha. Here is yours. Hello, dear Zishan. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Angel. Here is yours. Hi, welcome. Hi, dear Caroline. It is a good name. Thank you so much, dear Hayan. Hi, dear Damon. Here is yours. Double tap on your screens. Amanat. Hi, dear Amanat. It is a good name. Hey, dear Mass. Here is yours. Ashley in Sandcast. You. No, I am good. Thank you so much. Hi, dear Arya. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining us. And bye. Hello, dear Jules. Here is yours. Hi, dear Hannah. It is a good name. Hi, dear Arya. Here is yours. Hello, dear Olive. Here is a beautiful name. Thank you so much for subscribing. Double tap on your screens and don't forget to press the subscribe button. Let me take off my glasses because it's getting too hot here. Hi, dear Sarah. It is a good name. Hello, dear Mihika. Here is yours. Hi, dear Julie. Here is yours. We have to complete 150, guys. Double tap on your screens. Walaikum assalam. What's a good name? Hi, dear Arham. Here is yours. You're most welcome. Hello, dear Rich. Here is yours. Hi, dear Rian. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Justin. Here is yours. Hi, dear Adrian. It is a good name. Hi, dear Erisa. Here is yours. Thank you so much. Thank you. You are such a sweetheart, dear. Thank you for your kind words. Hi, dear Farron. Here is yours. Pineapple is not a vegetable, I think. Is it? Harriet. Hello, dear Harriet. Here is yours. Hi, dear Teherin. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Regine. Here is yours. Hi, dear Nina. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Nicole. Here is yours. Cucumber. Maybe. Hi, dear Zanger. Here is your good name. Thank you so much, dear Hayan. For liking and subscribing. Double tap on your screen, guys. We have to complete 160. Come on. Hi, dear Yash. Here is yours. Hello, dear Leah. Hello, dear Sana. Welcome back. How are you? Hi, dear Meenal. Here is your good name. Uh, what? Get well soon, dear Leah. Here is yours. Hi, dear Mona. It is a good name. Hello, dear Leah. Here is yours. Hi, dear Amit. It is a good name. Hello, dear Akron. Here is yours. Hi, dear Aisha. Here is yours. Double tap on your screens and don't forget to press the subscribe button. Let's see who is next. Rafia. No, dear Rafia, here is yours. Hi, dear Cheese. It is a good name. Hello, dear Easy. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Eva. Here is yours. Hello, dear Namina. Here is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Umihani. It is a beautiful name. Thank you so much for joining. It is a good name, dear. Hi, dear Sophia. It is a good name. Double tap on your screens and don't forget to drink the water. Okay. Tashinga. Hello, dear Tashinga. Here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Hello, dear Leah is done, huh? Email. Okay, here is yours. Hello, dear. Eva is done though. Ella, here is yours. Mm-mm-mm. Afshin. Hello, dear Afshin. Here is yours. Hi, dear Bahara. Here is your good name. Nice to Adams. Okay. Hi, dear Srimita. Welcome back. Here is yours. Hi, dear Shraddha. It is a beautiful name. Hello, dear Rustam. Here is yours. Hi, dear Lena. Here is your good name. Double tap on your screens. Come on. We have to complete 200. Hi, dear Dharni. Here is yours. Hi, dear Adya. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Samruti. Here is yours. Hello, dear Sanjana. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Ganga. Here is yours. Hi, dear Ritvik. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Sana. Here is yours. Hello, dear Ella. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Saloni. Here is yours. Hi, dear Abigail. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Elsa. Here is yours. Double tap on your screens. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hi, dear Yusuf. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Jenny. Here is yours. Hi, dear Astra. Here is your good name. You're most welcome, dear. Don't forget to double tap on your screens. And there is a subscribe button waiting for your finger press. Hi, welcome, dear Lisa. Here is yours. Hi, dear Luke. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Nihal. Here is yours. Hi, dear Lynn. Here is a good name. You're most welcome, dear. Thank you so much. Hi, dear Noel. Here is yours. Hello, dear Sophie. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Carrie. Here is yours. Heseon. Here is yours. Heseon is on the. You're most welcome. Thumbnail of my one of my live. Hi, dear Nyla. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Scarlett. Here is yours. Hi, dear Jalen. Here is your good name. Double tap on your screen, guys. We have to complete 200. 200. So keep double tapping and don't forget to press the subscribe button. Hi, dear Suheda. Here is yours. Hi, dear Jamaica. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Darcy. Here is yours. Hi, dear Savage. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Tim. Here is yours. Hello, dear Jackie. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Malika. Here is yours. Hello, dear Erica. Erica, here is yours for someone. Okay. Hello, dear Rian. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Harshini. Here is yours. Don't forget to double tap on your screens. Hi, dear Uves. Here is yours. Hello, dear Kyle. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Noor. Here is yours. Hi, dear Aku. Here is yours. Hello, dear Anna. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Jeet. Here is yours. Hi, dear Selena. Oh, welcome back, dear Sophie. Here is yours. Hello, dear Keela. Here is your good name, Sophia. Hello, dear Sophia. Hello, dear Elif. Could you guys hear me now? Amal Bhai, can you hear me? Hi, can you hear me now? Hello, dear Temur. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Mukarram. Here is yours. Yes, oh, thank God. Hi, dear Noel. Here is your beautiful name. Hello, dear Soha. Here is yours. Hello, dear Amy. It is a good name. Thank you so much for joining. Hi, dear Georgia. Here is your beautiful name. Double tap on your screen, guys. Come on. Vishal. Hi, dear Vishal. It is a beautiful name. Hi, Ibrahim. Welcome back. How are you? Adi. Hello, dear Adi. It is a beautiful name. Hi, dear Ibrahim. Welcome. How are you? Hello, dear Wasim. Here is yours. Hello, dear Siddhi. It is a good name. Ovas, please don't spam, man. Your name was done twice. But you are still spamming. Please don't spam. Hi, yeah, I can see Adi. Brianna. Hello, dear Brianna. Here is yours. Hi, dear Adi. How are you? Raima. Hello, dear Raima. Here is yours. Hi, dear Shiza. Here is a good name. Gracias. ¿Cómo estás? Hi dear Swara. Here is yours. Amal bhai. Okay, Albert. Hello dear Albert. Here is yours. Hi dear Bella. Here is a good name. Guys, we have to complete 200. So double tap on your screens and don't forget to press the subscribe button. Hi dear Raina or Rania? Rania. Okay, so good to know. Where is Nitiji? Amal. Amal, here is yours and it is done at 1 hour and 5 minutes. Come on guys, double tap on your screens. Rupal. Hi dear Rupal, here is yours. Welcome back. Hi dear Zoha. It is a good name. अमन भाई क्या ही बोलूँ मैं. Hi dear Sahara. Here is yours. Aya? Hi dear Aya. Here is yours. Hello dear Hussein. Here is your good name. Tourette and E. Here is yours. Thank you so much for subscribing guys. Hi dear Sarah. Here is your beautiful name. इसके बाद अमूल भाई एक चीज दिखाती हूँ ठहरो. देखना. Hi dear Adnan. Here is yours. Okay, Adi. Thank you so much for joining everyone. Double tap on your screens and don't forget to press the subscribe button there. देखें जरा कितने सब्सक्राइब किया है भाई. 200 हो गए हैं लाइक. ठीक है, नेक्स्ट लिखें. Hi dear Yuna, here is your good name. Hi dear Shrive, here is yours. You're most welcome, brother. Thank you so much. Hi dear Tatev, here is yours. Hello dear Inaya, here is your beautiful name. Hi dear Anya, here is yours. Okay. What? She's here too? Are you here? दिखा ही नहीं भाई कमेंट. ओह मैं क्या लिखने लगी थी मैं भूल गई हूँ. एस से क्या लिखने लगी थी. अभी अभी मैंने कुछ बोला था ना पहले. हाँ भूल गई हूँ. Sarah. Hi dear Sarah, here is yours. Hello dear Ozzy. It is a good name. Siba. Okay. Hi dear Siba, here is yours. Hi dear Kala. Kala और ये आदि भाई को तो आते साथ ही हैशटैग मिल गया है भाई. पहले आप कभी आए हैं क्यों यहाँ पे भाई. स्पैम कर रहे थे इसलिए मिला इनको. Hi dear Khala, here is yours. Hello dear Honey. Here is your good name. Hello dear Hamim. Here is yours. कौन सा. Hello dear Luna. Here is a good name. Hi dear Dane. Here is yours. Guys, double tap on your screens and don't forget to press the subscribe button. आज शायद मैं जल्दी एंड कर दूँ लाइव. मेरे सर में दर्द होने लग गई है. Hi dear Cassas. Here is a good name. किसने दिया? नाइट बोट ने टाइम आउट दे दिया है, किसको दिया है भाई? हाय डियर जेहान, हियर इज योर्स। ओह अच्छा। Hi dear Prachi, here is yours. Hi dear Zainab, here is a good name. Double tap on your screen, guys. Don't forget to press the subscribe button. Keep sure. Here is yours. Hi dear Fatima. It is a good name. Bye bye. Thank you so much for joining. Take care. Good night. Hi dear Latifa. Here is yours. Hello, dear Moise. Here is yours. Let's see who is next. Fiza in the chat. Hello, dear Fiza. It is a good name. Guys, double tap on your screens and don't forget to press the subscribe button. How's the weather in your homeland? Because here are so hot. Hi, dear Issue. Here is yours. One more time, please. What? What's your good name? Hi, dear Fino. Here is yours. Hello, dear Erling. Here is yours. Gigi, बोले हाँ please बोलिए. Hi, dear Moise. Here is yours. Hi, dear Ritu. Here is a good name. Hello, dear Faizan. Here is yours, Tori. Hello, dear Tori. Here it is yours. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Don't forget to double tap on your screens and let's see who is next. Palin. Hi, dear Palin. Here is yours. And please your name and my name in a heart, and I wanna make screenshot. Okay, dear. Hi, dear Pihu. Here is yours. You are such a sweetheart, dear Maja. And let's see who is next. Double tap on your screens and don't forget to press the subscribe button there. Hi, Ishal. Welcome back. Here is a good name. Hello, dear love. Here is yours. Hi, dear Faya. Here is yours. Thank you so much. Hello, dear Rahim. It is a good name. Hello, dear Anshika. Here is yours. मैम आप क्या दिखा रही थी? मैं समझा नहीं. मैंने कब दिखाया कुछ क्या? ओ हाँ, मैंने कमेंट किया था. एक मिनट ठहरो. एक मिनट. दोबारा देखो. मेरा कमेंट मिला आपको मॉडरेटर वाली आईडी से? Hello, dear Anna. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Harshu. Here is yours. Hafiza Abira, mashallah, welcome. Here is your good name. Moise. Hi, dear Moise. Here is yours. हाँ, कब देखा आपने भाई? Felix. वैसे ही दिल करा था मेरा, मैंने कर लिया. Hi, dear Myla. Here is yours. Hello, dear Soumya. Here is yours. Hi, dear Hava. It is a good name. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hello, dear silly. Here is your good name. हाँ, बस यही कहना था. Hi, dear Elma. Here is yours. Hello, dear Kyra. It is a good name. Yes, I am. Alhamdulillah. Hi, dear Kyla. Here is yours. Hi, dear Ilka. Here is a good name. Hi, dear Rafe. Here is yours. Hello, dear Umida. Here is your good name. हाँ क्या मैम आप अपनी आईडी से ब्लू हटा दो और मैं टाइम आउट दूंगा. मैं कौन सा उससे कमेंट करती हूँ जो मुझे टाइम आउट का पता भी चलेगा. हाय डियर भाई हियर इज योर्स. मुझे ही टाइम आउट दोगे भाई मेरे ही चैनल पे. हाय डियर आमिर हियर इज योर्स. थैंक यू सो मच फॉर joining. Thanks for saying mine. Most welcome dear. Lots of love. Hi dear Maryam. Here is yours. Hello dear Virat. Here is your good name. Rahim is done. Rahim. Rahim brother. Here is yours. Hi, dear Paulina. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Citra. Here is yours. Thank you. Yes, I am. Alhamdulillah. I reply you. I have replied you, dear Ariba, Vaishnavi. Hello, dear Vaishnavi. It is a good name. Hi, dear Citra. Here is yours. Dipto honey. Honey, honey, honey. Let's see who is next. Yes, I am. How do you know about this? Have you visited my channel before? Hi, dear soul. Laugh. Here is your good name. Okay, let me check. Can we read you? Okay, I'll write again for you, dear. It is a good name and it is done at 1 hour and 17 minutes of the live. If you want a screenshot. हाँ पता नहीं कैसे क्यों नहीं देख के आए होंगे भाई. या maybe पता चल जाता है. Hi, my name is Lareba. Lareba. Here is yours. Hi, dear Ahil. Here is your good name. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Hi, dear Erin. Here is yours. Thank you. You're most welcome. Let's see who is next. Hello, dear Nathan. पता नहीं शायद. Oh, mashallah, Adiba. Congratulations. Hi, dear Selba. Here is a good name. Double tap on your screen, guys. Come on. And now we are going to write Heather. Hi, Heather. Welcome. How are you? Hello, dear Manahil. Happy birthday to you. It is a good name. भाई जितनी दफ़ा फ़र्ज़ हैं. Hi, dear Dini. Here is yours. Hello, dear Saba. Here is yours. Adiba ka bhai? Sanvi. Hello, dear Sanvi. Here is yours. Hi, dear Sayanthini. What a unique name you have, dear Sayanthini. It is a good name. Guys, double tap on your screens and don't forget to press the subscribe button. And let's see who is Fatima. Hi dear Fatima. It is a good name. नहीं, वो कोई और अदीबा थी शायद, मैंने उसको बोला होगा। अदीबा नाम भी काफ़ी आ रहा है आजकल। अरीबा, यह अरीबा, अरीबा बोला है मैंने, अदीबा नहीं बोला। Hi dear Petri, here is yours. Hello dear Asad, it is a good name. Hi dear Reshma, here is yours. वो जो आप नहीं खाते भाई। Hi dear Trini, here is yours. Hello dear Thomas, it is a good name. Thank you so much. And hello dear Saba, here is yours. Hi dear Mariana, it is a good name. हाँ सही बात है, सेम सेम। मैंने उसको क्वेश्चन दिए, मैं अभी तक उसने Q&A अपलोड नहीं किया। मैं वेट कर रही हूँ, मैं 4 दफ़ा उसका चैनल खोल के देख चुकी हूँ कि अभी तक Q&A नहीं आया। हाय डियर रूबी, हियर इज योर्स। एक्सेंट बहुत मज़े का है उसका। हेलो डियर किंग, इट्स अ गुड नेम। थैंक यू, you're most welcome. Don't forget to like and subscribe, Bia. Hi dear Bia, here is yours. Hello dear Habib. Oh, why I am writing B? It is a good name. Hi dear, उल्टा लिख रही हूँ, इसका मतलब पता है क्या है कि मेरा दिमाग थक गया। Hi dear Tanya, it is a good name. Hi dear Saba, here is yours. Double tap on your screen guys. हिदी, हिदी क्या नाम था? ये कौन है भाई जो एम फालतू में। आई एम गुड, हाउ अबाउट यू? वेलकम बैक। मैं ये भूल गई क्या स्पेलिंग थे, HITU। हाय फातिमा, हिटी, ओके डियर हिटी, आफ्टर दिस। हेलो डियर फातिमा, हियर इज योर्स। हाय डियर हिटी, here is yours. Hello dear Nika, here is a good name. Hi dear, hands off. Let me write GABRIELA. Here is yours. Hi dear Noor, it is a good name. Hello dear Anand, here is yours. Hi dear Satvik, here is yours. Thank you so much for joining. Hi dear SM, here is your good name. Hi dear Miss Two, here is yours. We have to complete 250 guys, or maybe 267. Your voice is genuinely beautiful, soft, calming, and the kind of voice someone can listen for hours without getting tired. Oh my god, thank you, Sefu. Lots of love, thank you. I really appreciate your love and support. Hi dear Paras, here is yours. Me, what's your name? Hi dear Ramil, here is yours. You're most welcome. Hi dear Sidra, it is a good name. Hi dear Okay, welcome back, Muslim Bhai. Hi, dear Mahi. Hello, Fatima. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Hi, dear Sumera. It is a beautiful name. Double tap on your screen, guys. Hi, dear Shri. Here is yours. Hello, dear Hannah. Here is your good name. Just wait for a second. Hi, dear Umar. Here is yours. Hello, dear Aisha. Here is your good name. I don't do random lives, Olena and Alessandro. Sorry, I'm not English. I'm not English too. Here is yours, dear Alessandro. Are you from Mexico? ¿Cómo estás? Gracias. Here is yours. Muslim Bhai mentioned them. Okay, let's see who is next. Hello, dear Riz. Here is yours. Hi, dear Amina. Here is your beautiful name. Hi, dear Jake. Here is yours. You are from Italy. सीखनी पड़ेगी इटली की भी थोड़ी बहुत language. Hi, dear Rose. Here is yours. I am Farhan from India subscriber. Thank you so much for subscribing, dear Farhan. It is your good name. Hi, dear Ryan. Here is your good name. Hello, dear Golem. Here is yours. Hi, dear Moise Mahi. Here is yours. Hello, dear Divya. It is a good name. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. Who is saying hot dog? Hi, dear Sophia. It is a good name. Let me check the. Okay. Hi, dear Azra. Here is yours. अरे इतना सारा नहीं बताना था उनसे कंट्री पूछ के बता देते भाई पूछ कौन रहा था मोइस आप पूछ रहे थे क्या टाइमिंग Hi, dear Megan. Here is yours. Okay, Farhan. It is a good name. हाँ पता नहीं कौन सी कंट्री इट्स ओके कोई बात नहीं मैं ना डिस्क्रिप्शन अपडेट करूँगी उसके अंदर लिख देंगे माया प्लीज इट्स ओके डियर माया सेम हियर इट इज़ अ गुड नेम हाय डियर सुल्तान हियर इज योर सैफू या सैफू पूछ रहे थे Okay, and personality estimate, it's not surprised to in different things your fans. You have a charm that naturally excitement. Thank you so much. But where are you from? Do let me know. Uh, Hi, dear Lakshmi. Here is yours. Hi, dear Linda. Here is yours. Can you remember my name if I ask you tomorrow? Moise. Yeah, definitely. Let me check your DP. Gamer X. Okay. You're from Italy. Good to hear. Hi, dear Daniela. So good to have you here, dear. Here is yours. Thank you so much, Farhan. इतनी भी अच्छी नहीं है भाई Hi dear Kunal, here is yours. इतनी अच्छी नहीं है मेरी English. Masum and E. Here is a good name. Double tap on your screen, guys, and don't forget to press the subscribe button there. And let's see who is next. Hi dear Amen. Here is yours. Hi dear Irish. It is a good name. Hi dear Mukesh. Here is yours. Hi, dear Telina. Here is your good name. Hi, dear Semisa. Here is yours. Double SA. Thank you. Thank you. चले मान लेते हैं आप बोलते हो भाई तो. Hi, dear Hussein. It is a good name. Guys, double tap on your screens. We have to complete 257. 2, 5, and 7. We are stuck on 251. Tangina. Tangina. Oh, hi. Hello, dear Tangina. Here is your good name. No. मोहसिन भाई जान के तंग कर रहे हो, मुझे पता है आपका. हाय डियर लैला. जाने का टाइम हो रहा है वैसे. ओके. Hi, dear Camilla. How are you? And now it's time to end the stream. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Don't forget to double tap on your screens, and there is a subscribe button waiting for your finger press. And don't forget to press the bell icon so you can. Yasha. Hi, dear Yasha. It is a good name. And now it's. Let me read the comment of you, Muslim Bhai. Wait for a minute. Like, am I? Mm-hmm. अरे अरे ऐसा वर्ड यूज मत करो भाई. Wazifa. Okay, now we are going to write our last name for this stream, which is Jenna. Thank you so much, dear Jenna. Here is your good name. Uh, Antonella. Thank you so much, Antonella, for subscribing. Don't be sad. ¿Cómo estás? Gracias for joining. And now we Instagram ID, but why? Instagram is linked with my channel, but I am not that active in Instagram. Rana, I am from Turkey. Okay, let's see. Let's write your name, dear Rana. And this is our last name for this stream. फरहान दोबारा आ जाना फिर, ठीक है भाई? 3 दफ़ा लिखा है मैंने आपका नाम, ये मुझे याद रहेगा. Dear Farhan, thank you so much for joining everyone. And Colleen, Angel, Jack, Amia, and Jackie. Double tap on your screen, guys. Come on, Luna. And after Luna, Relison is our next subscriber. Bam, Ria. क्या क्या लिखा है आज? नहीं, मेरे सर में दर्द होने लग गई है. तब मैं अच्छी थी पहले, आपने जब भी जब का बोला है ना मुझे भाई, उसके बाद से मेरा दिमाग घूम रहा है. मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है जैसे मेरी चेयर हिल रही है भाई, शायद दिल आ रहा है. अस्तगफिरुल्लाह. हाय डियर आयशा, बट गर्मी की वजह से हो रहा है. तो चलिए चलते हैं, अपना बहुत सारा ख्याल रखिएगा. कल आएंगे सुबह सवेरे. तब तक के लिए don't worry, I will ask you for it's okay, I know. इंस्टाग्राम आईडी मेरे लिंक है यूट्यूब चैनल के साथ ही, उसको क्लिक करोगे डायरेक्ट पहुंच जाएगा वहाँ पे. और वैसे भी मैं वहाँ पे एक्टिव नहीं रहती और ना ही मैं ज़्यादा कंटेंट डालती हूँ, बहुत पहले की वीडियोस पड़ी हुई हैं उसके ऊपर. तो थैंक यू सो मच फॉर योर सपोर्ट एंड लव, आई रियली अप्रिशिएट दैट. थैंक यू सो मच. एंड होम एड्रेस तो कभी भी नहीं बताऊँगी किसी को भी मैं. बट बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. हिंदी में बोलते हैं धन्यवाद एंड ग्रासियस. Thank you so much everyone. Bye bye. Love you all.